We're live.
As long as it's still coming. Good afternoon. At this time, I'm gonna do something a little different. We're gonna have prayer by Morris Kasarkin.
Actually, we would have prayer by Jerome.
By Jerome I'm sorry. It'll be by Jerome Weatherspoon. Deacon Weatherspoon.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for allowing us to meet tonight for this great occasion. We thank you for those who have come. We thank you for the mindset in which they have to make our city a better place, that we can grow and our generations after us can come and be proud of the legacy in which we left. So we ask for guidance, understanding, and leadership in your son Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Welcome, block captains, president, residents, and all to the SET 2022 community meeting. Thank you for all your dedication, and we look forward to greater community wealth building. Remember, every other month starting February, April, June, August, October, and December. Mark your calendars every third Monday of those months at 6:30 p.m. We will be hosting the community meetings. Okay, we want to get started here. I'm going to start out the meeting with some information here. We're going to talk about the SET Neighborhood Alliance. It's a civic association of the subdivided blocks that make up the SET neighborhood, established in 1997. The alliance focuses on civic engagement, resident leadership development, voting and voter engagement, community education, and public policies to support the SET and the vision for the community as identified in the SET Transformation Plan. The chairs are Reggie Cox and Morris Christopher, which you will be hearing from later. The coalition is a table of engaged strategic partners working together to implement the SET Transformation Plan projects, initiatives, and vision. The mission of the coalition is to advance redevelopment to improve the economic, social, and cultural future of the West Atlantic community, known as the SET. The chair is Chuck Ridley with the support of Thrive. The SET Neighborhood Plan. The SET Neighborhood Plan is a community-led and informed refacing and updating of planning documents covering over 30 years of neighborhood improvement plans for the SET. It uplifts the community's vision. The SET shall become a place of opportunity, resilience, inclusion, and wellness through equitable policies and development, strategic partnership, and the power of community leadership. We look forward to continue our great work and our wealth building. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to who I got here next. I believe it is Morris.
Good evening. As we're hosting this meeting tonight, we have people around the world that's looking at what's unfolding in Ukraine. Someone asked me the question, if our president of the United States would call on the American people to defend the Constitution, would I go? You would think it would be a simple answer, but I struggled to answer that question as I was reminded of the 5 black cities that currently in the United States of America is covered up by lakes. I also was reminded of the 1921 Tulsa, Oklahoma massacre, where the end of the Black Wall, where black families were completely wiped out. You had doctors, lawyers, teachers, principals, all was murdered. I also reminded you 2 years later, just right here in Florida, Rosewood, Florida, of the 1921 Rosewood massacre. So it was hard for me to answer those questions. And I also was reminded of Bloody Sunday that everyone saw, as the world saw, on March 7th, 1865. So it was difficult for me to answer that question. But what I do know that I will defend my loved ones until my death. Now, Delray Beach did not have a tough of a moment, but it did struggle from the Jim Crow segregation. And sometimes we forget that there was a law in Delray Beach that the blacks could only live in certain places. Where we currently reside right now in Jackson, all of that. That was the only place the blacks could live during that time. And as an older say sometimes, we do not have no ordinary Negroes here in Delray Beach. We never will. So tonight we'll take this opportunity to honor some of our warriors that fought to the city that you see today. So we will have reflections from Deidre Strong on Mr. Zach, after Zach Strong. We also will have a reflection from the Weatherspoon family by the son, Jimmy Weatherspoon. And so we'll get started right into Mr. Deidre Strong on the reflection of Mr. After Zach.
Good evening, everybody. In case you all don't know, my name is Deidre Strong. I am the grandson of Mr. Alfred Zach Strong, the city of Delray Beach's greatest advocate. And I don't make that statement lightly. I say that because that's truly who he was. My grandfather loved the city of Delray Beach. He always had something to say about Delray that made him proud that he was a lifelong resident. He boasted Delray everywhere he went. And when I was younger, I could never really understand it. But as I got older and got more involved, I kind of saw exactly why he cared for Delray the way that he did. He put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into Delray, into making sure that all of the residents of Delray Beach enjoyed the same rights and privileges as others. There were several things my grandfather was really proud of, and I want you all to really hear me when I mention this one thing, because I don't think he's ever got his just due outside of the set community for this. My grandfather was instrumental, and I'll say that, in integrating Delray Beach. Now, those of you beyond the set and beyond what we consider the African American community might not be aware of that, because he never really got the credit that he truly deserved for that. And he never, to be honest with you, he never sought it. He allowed others to take credit for it. But it was Alfred Zach Strong who was instrumental and started the protests and the walks and the discussions to integrate the city of Delray Beach. He was proud of that. That was in particular why, when he started to walk, he chose to walk to the beach. That walk that he did to the beach every other day was not so much for exercise, because he could have walked anywhere in the city of Delray Beach, but he wanted to walk to the beach because he knew that there was a time when he couldn't do that. And the fact that he was able to do that was because of the work that he put in and the way that he galvanized the community and made them all a part of integrating that beach, so that the blacks in Delray could enjoy the greatness of what Delray Beach is. My grandfather was also very instrumental in seeing to it that the city of Delray Beach did not exercise eminent domain. That was the genesis of what we now know as the WARP Committee, the West Atlantic Redevelopment Committee. He was really proud of the fact, and he would boast that all the time. You know, this city won't eminent domain. We work hard to make sure that the city will never eminent domain property here in Delray Beach. That was really important to him. And I remember one time I was telling Chuck Whitley this earlier, he had an opportunity to obtain property that he wanted, in fact, to build a law firm for myself on. And when the issue of eminent domain came up where he could benefit from it, he absolutely said no. He would not allow me to benefit from something that he stood so adamantly against. So to this day, my office is now in the family building, the Strawn and Son building. I don't have a separate building for my law firm, and I'm fine with that because I understood what was sacrificed in order for me to be able to have the office where it is now, which is in the family building. I'm even more proud of that than I would have been having a standalone building, because he stood on his principles and he stood on the things that he believed in to give that up. Alfred Zach Strawn, again, he was Delray Beach. When I came back home from law school and I started to get more involved in community, I never had to ask my grandfather to do anything that I was involved in. In fact, I would just tell him what was going on, and he would say, "Okay, well, you need my help? Do you need me to go with you?" I remember one time I had a meeting with the city manager to aid a city employee in a job, and I was just going by to tell my grandfather what was going on. I went over to the breakfast table, which is now the eldest table, but at that time it was just him and a bunch of friends sitting around talking about the good old days. And I was telling her I was having a meeting with the city manager about this particular employee's job. And when I finished, he said, "Okay, do you want us to go with you?" And I looked at him and I said, "Yeah." He said, "Okay." And that was the start of my work with my grandfather, which I'm more proud of than anything else that I've ever done as a professional in the legal field, was the fact that I could stand next to my grandfather, who I've known to be a stalwart in the community and an advocate for everybody. I could stand side by side with him and do the exact same work that I saw him do when I was younger. And he was there every step of the way. My grandfather, Mr. Randolph, Mr. Golston, Mr. Dobson, Josh Smith, all of those individuals were there. And then later on, Chuck Ridley started, Chuck was going with us, but it just made me feel good to have him there and just know that I never had to ask him, but he was there. And he would always say, "D, I'm getting tired. I really want to just step aside and allow some of the younger kids, the younger generation, to step up, because this is going to be your city one day. This is going to be their city one day." But he never stopped. He never stopped. Whenever you would call and ask him to be there, he would take the microphone at city commission meetings to support things that the community was behind. And he and I would sit before the meeting and go over talking points, because he wanted to make sure that he was speaking about things that he was well versed in. He would never wanted to just go and not be prepared. So he and I would sit down. He would tell me something. I would help him formulate his thoughts, because he had them in his head, but he wanted to put them in a succinct pattern so that it came across in his mind as intelligent. Because he was very concerned about making sure that the powers to be really understood what was needed, what was being said, and actually took heed to it. One of the proudest moments in my life was one day where, I mentioned this story many times before. Chuck, Ann Wright, she was there. We held the sit-in the city manager's conference room. This was February 2010. I still remember this very vividly. And we were told to leave because they didn't like the amount of people we had in the office. I think we had about 30 some odd people. They only wanted the meeting to contain myself and the city employee that was being represented at the time. And we said no. And we said no several times. So at one point, former city manager David Hardin stepped up and he said, "Well, if you all don't leave, I'm going to call the police." And when he said it initially, it didn't concern me. I mean, I figured if the police came, nothing was going to happen because we were there peacefully. What really concerned me was the fact that not more than 2 seconds after he said it, my grandfather and former Commissioner David Randolph jumped out of their seats, jumped into his face with their fist ball, and I honestly swear to God thought that one of those two was going to hit Mr. Hardin. And it was at that time I said to myself, oh, goodness, we're going to jail today. There was no doubt in my mind we were going to jail. I'd never in my life seen my grandfather that mad. And I remember him jumping up saying, if you want to call the police, call them. God darn it, he did say darn it because my grandfather wasn't one to curse. He said, God darn it, I'm sick of every time we don't do what you tell us to do. You threaten us with calling the police as if we're supposed to run scared. And the look of fear that I saw in Mr. Hardin's eyes was one that I'd never seen before in what I considered to be a public official or an authority figure. And eventually cooler heads prevailed. And my grandfather and I, we talked over that day a lot. And that's when I really got a sense of who he was prior to age and calmness setting in. Chuck would tell me all the time, oh man, your grandfather was a firecracker back in the day. Those city officials didn't like him. I couldn't see it then because he was always gentle and kind as far as I was concerned. But that day in that city manager's office, I saw who Zach was in his prime. He was granddaddy before, but I saw Zach that day. And he and I would talk. And what I found funny about him was I would have meetings. We would have meetings. And, those same individuals would be there. And if you know me, you know that I can be a bit rough when I'm talking to those across the table. But my grandfather, he never once said, well, D, I didn't like the way you said that. D, you could have handled yourself much better than that. D, you shouldn't have said that. Never. He never sort of pulled the reins in. He always said, that's the way you handle it. And it was that, and there were others who said that, well, maybe you were a little bit too rough, but not him. Not him. He was a staunch supporter of anything that he felt was right. It didn't matter how hard, how cold, or how heartless others may have thought, it was. If it was right, he was going to stand behind me. He was going to stand behind it. He stood behind me. He stood behind everything that set, warp, and anybody in this neighborhood that wanted to do good for the community, he stood behind. It's hard not having him here while we're still fighting. I know he wanted to see West Atlantic Avenue develop more than it did before he passed. But I know he left here because he and I talked about it. I know he left here feeling good about who was left behind, taking up the mantle and leading the charge after him. And he always talked about that. He always gave props to people like Chuck, Reggie, and Morris, all of those individuals who were consistently fighting for the residents, and again, and what we consider the black part of town, the residents in the set, to make sure that we enjoyed the same level of comfort in our living styles as those that didn't look like us across Swinton Avenue and out west beyond Congress Avenue. Again, my grandfather was Delray Beach. He loved it. He lived it. And in a sense, he gave his life for the city of Delray Beach because there was nothing he wouldn't do. And he went to his grave still active and a part of the things that we were fighting for in this city. And for that, I'll always be grateful to have known him as my grandfather.
Thank you so much, Diedrich. Sean, could you do me a favor and mute everyone that is not speaking?
Sure.
Thank you so much. And we're going to now move to Jerome Witherspoon. Diedrich, what an awesome person Zach was. I had the privilege of being mentored and tutored by Zach. We just love that man. All right, Mr. Jerome Witherspoon.
Yes, good evening to everyone. I'm Jerome Witherspoon, and I'm speaking on behalf of my father, the late Reverend L.C. Witherspoon. And I'm just going to say a few words. Unfortunately, I can't speak as eloquent as Attorney Strong did there, but I will, in my own little way, get my point across, talking about this man amongst men, this hero, this silent giant of a man in my eyes, which was L.C. Witherspoon there. He was one that worked all of his life, even as a kid there. I was told by my mom that he moved to Delray. He was in his early 30s, and later years he moved his family down, his brother and his wife, his sister and their family down, and resided on 12th Avenue where I live now. And his home had been there really for over 70 years there. He was not an educated man, but he always relied on mother wit, as he said, and understanding. He had the values to always treat people as you would want to be treated. He had strong work ethics in which he instilled upon all his kids there, and there were many. There were 12 that I'm aware of there, and he instilled that same work ethics, the same morals, the same values. He believed in God, number one. He believed in family, and he believed in community activating. He was very active in the Delray Beach Voter League. When the Black High School, Carver High School, was in its existence, he used to use his bus to take the football team to play other schools there. And being that at that time, he were both a labor contractor, so he had a bus and other farm equipment there. And he also became a paving contractor as well. And he used to tell me when downtown was mostly swamp, he ran the bulldozer for many years and filled in a lot of the swampy land there that they can build upon there. And because of the hard work which he did, some of the shakers and movers at that period said that they want to leave something that the city and his children can see his legacy of his contribution to the city of Delray Beach. So they named the street after him, east of Federal Highway and 8th Street. And so therefore, he gained a lot of respect from the west side, the West Atlantic side of town, and also the East Atlantic side of town, where he did a lot of work for a lot of people. And he always told me, son, if a man gonna ride, he gonna have to ride just standing up, not bent over there. He said, be a man of your words, say what you mean and mean what you say. And for that, he was respected. Oftentimes was not liked, but was respected because he stood on his morals and his principle. He was very entrepreneurial, even with his lack of education there. He had bought a lot of properties there and had rental properties there, managed them, purchased land, and he had a vision to build a church. And oftentimes he told my mother the story, and he told us the story as well, that he had a vision of building a church that people can see their way to God, that get some morals and values and principles that they can make their community a better place there. And he said not only did he have the vision to build it, but he was given the name, and that's why we have the name community right now. Therefore, he wanted to involve the community to be of help to the community. And oftentimes, him and my mother, they would, with all the children that they had and fed, they would feed anyone that was hungry. If they came by the house, he would tell my mother to fix them something to eat there. And so for that, he was respected by the community. And in his own way, he's tried to support the community, the neighborhood, his fellow man, because he knew that one day he would not be here. And he wanted his footprints to be so engraved in the sand that others coming along that way would know beyond a shadow of a doubt that he had been that way. And he was definitely a model, a role model in my mind and in my heart there for the things that he accomplished with no education there. And in a time when education means everything there, he proved during his era that if you had the desire to do there and trust in the Lord there's nothing that you can't achieve through with Christ. All things are possible if we just believe. And so he is still that in all of his offsprings there. He often told them, say, look, I don't care what you obtain in this world. Just never forget where you came from. Never forget to reach down and help that one who's not doing as well as you are doing there. Rather than if you're going to look down on them there, make sure you're extending a helping hand to pull them up from where they are there. And this is something that I will always cherish and carry with me through my life. And I would try to incorporate that in my daily living as well there. Then my efforts would not be in vain. And again, he was a great man, a giant among giants, because he came from nothing and established an empire. And I tell my sons that no matter what I accomplish in life there, I can never be the man that my father were there, because through the help of God, he came from nothing and built the empire for his children and his children from generation to generation. If we keep the same mentality he had, loving God, loving family, and loving the community, and being an asset to the community. And so in my closing, I would just like to say that truly I was so proud, and still to this day is very proud of my father, for he displayed what we all should be in life there. And as Mr. Strong there, he lived the life that he sung about there. He did not say one thing and do another. His actions spoke louder than his words there. He was not well versed, but he had enough common sense to know that he can do it. He often said that if the other man can do it, I can do it as well. There's nothing that I can't do if I put my heart and work into it there. And so I say in my conclusion there that truly he were a very good inspiration to me and to many. For this day, I hear some of the old timers that was around during this era often speak good things about him and how he helped them. And I just hope in my lifetime there, before my expiration date has been called, I would be able to do some of the things in which he have done. Then I would know that my living is not in vain. Thank you for your time.
Wow. Thank you, Mr. Weatherspoon. Morris Christoffen, I don't know if you're still on, but if not, I will continue. Before I transition to the coalition's report, I would love to share with both Diedrich and Jerome, my family knew your family as well. Jerome, as a kid, I don't have to tell you this because you, yourself and your brothers and I played. It was a bunch of you all, but we played together and had great times. I hear you when you share about your father, and in terms of what you identified as him not getting a lot of schooling. And I want to share with you, there is a difference in having schooling and being educated. I knew a lot of well-schooled people that were not nearly as educated as your father. When you say that man built an empire, he did. He was a giant of a man. He was never afraid of any of the institutions. And just like Zach, he didn't run. He was a warrior. He met them. And while he may not have had a lot of schooling, and according to you, I saw how he made sure that you all did. Some of the smartest people that I got a chance to go to class with was you and your brothers, and you could see the value. I was in the same class with Elijah, and you could see the value of education and how the generation that your father grew up in would make sure that, and they went by this adage, that we would have to work twice as hard to get half as far. Well, that was true, and they placed that and instilled that in us. What a rich neighborhood we have. They lived by the adage that nobody's going to come save us. And so this particular piece, this section, the real intent was to make sure as we celebrate Black History Month that we don't commercialize, that we don't diminish the roles of the warriors who stood out in front of us. Too often, we want to make peace, but it's not about making peace. It is about building power. And your father Jerome and your grandfather Diedrich was all about that. So I do appreciate it. The third person we had scheduled tonight couldn't make it. Her name is Miss Janice Hill, and she was an educator. And Miss Janice really, she and her sister exemplified what an educator was. So Miss Janice, we're not going to go into the report and miss you, because we're going to want you to be there when we say it, but we love you. So I'm going to wave at you and tell you hi and let you know we also love you. So in this particular section, I'm not sure if Miss Ernestine is here. If she is here, I would like her to join me on the panel. And I would also, if Angela Burns is here, I would like for her to join me on the panel. Angela and Miss Ernestine, how are you doing?
Fine, thank you.
And,
Good evening to all of you.
all right, Angela, how are you doing?
I'm doing well.
All right. So to our community, this component is the coalition's report. The coalition is what we now call WARP, and it looks at everything that you knew about WARP. It is still a watchdog organization, but we also look at how we build power through organizing and build power through projects that lead to organizing. There are several projects that we're engaged in tonight, but we're going to lift up three of those projects. The first one is about, I'm going to call it the Legacy Housing Project, Ms. Ernestine, because that's the part of it. I know that's the part of that I'm most proud of what's happening with the generational work we're doing. And we have a lot of work and excitement going on in our community about it. The second project is the work you're doing, Angela, with Peach Umbrella. And over a week ago, you also had a chance to do some work with the Blackman's Market, with the Peach Umbrella Network. And then I'm going to speak about Faith Forward, who also this weekend did some really tremendous work. And so, Ms. Ernestine, it is with joy to know that you're in process. I mean, I know there are things that has to happen of being one of our families that is going to get a chance to celebrate being able to leave your legacy to your grandson. I want to thank all the folk who are involved in that. And I want to really lift up the work that Thrive has done in this, in terms of really walking it through. Was an idea that came out of Community Belly, talking about the importance of housing. And in Delray, I just read a report today that the cost of rent has gone up almost 42%. In fact, it's about $2,500 a month is the median rent in the city of Delray. And so to be able to provide a legacy of housing is so tremendous. And, so many people were engaged in that. But can you just talk about what this means to you to be able to utilize an asset like your land and your property to build wealth, generational wealth in your family?
I am so proud to extend my community wealth to my grandson. And that at the time when we bought that property, it took us 4 years to save $500 to build that house. And there is no way that I want to sell my property for peanuts when I can leave it to my grandson who can pass it on to his son. I am so happy because nothing like you working like a dog for something and somebody come along and offer you something because they think you're greedy enough for their little peanuts when you can't take those little peanuts and go nowhere and buy a home. You couldn't even rent for what they're offering us for our property. And then they're coming out here in our property doing a little bit of paint and maybe put a little grass in the yard and selling the same property that we had to work harder than hard for and want to sell it for 5, 6, 7, $800,000. I feel that my grandson would appreciate my property more than the person that's trying to buy it. Because anytime someone calls you on the telephone and have the audacity to tell you, well, we buy ugly houses. I don't give a hoot nanny who buy ugly houses. My ugly house is going to stay in my family, not someone else. And I am more proud of the groundbreaking yesterday for Jessica Strong because it symbolizes so much. This being Black History Month, Mr. Strong was born in Black History Month, and for his granddaughter's house to be underway of being built is a grand stand for me because that was one of the dreams that Mr. Strong wanted so bad that we keep our property in our families. And I am so proud of what happened yesterday and what is about to happen for me.
So are we, Mr. Ernestine. This is some of the most exciting work I've seen in a long time. Your grandson and Jessica will immediately have equity in their property. So I'm real pleased about the coalition that came about to make this work happen. And so thank you for your long year. You're a living legend yourself. Your long years of hard work and how you make that happen. And so I can't begin to express how excited I am for where we're going as a community. Okay, Angela, I'm gonna come over to you. So Angela, we are at a place and stage where we know that it's hard for businesses. Absolutely. And businesses need networks. And so out of the vision again of the coalition, we are now looking at how do we begin to network buildings network businesses is the word I'm looking for, and how we build a network. Would you talk both about Peach Umbrella as well as the work of that you're doing with Peach Umbrella to build out that network, and then the event you had a couple of weeks ago where you want to take Blackbird Spot?
Okay, so good evening, everyone. Some exciting things is going on with Peach Umbrella. First of all, we are a network that pays homage to the legacy and necessity of Black ownership here in Delray, the set, and actually we've extended to the other parts of the county because a lot of our people have had to leave Delray and still have businesses and still service here in Delray. I'm proud to say that we have moved from our original 18 charter members to now 97 members. For Black History Month, we waived um, the membership fee of $50, and we onboarded 52 new members during the month of February. And so we are really, really proud of that. So we have, as our wording says, from brick to mortar establishments, we have talented artisans, vendors, we have entrepreneurs, side hustlers, we have everything. So we encourage you to check out our Facebook page or Instagram page. We've launched those two media networks, and we have all of our members highlighting their businesses and what they offer, the service that they offer, or the products that they offer. So we encourage you to visit that. We started the year out with a workshop, taking care of business workshop, where we had two local business owners, Alex Burns and Jason Bradley, talk to us about the challenges that they have with starting a business and just operating a business here in Delray Beach. We also had Tony Smith to come and share her expertise in the area of fund development, management, and she has worked with nonprofits for over 30 years. So it was a really good turnout, some really great information shared, so much so that we're going to not repeat the same workshop, but we have another one scheduled for the 30th of March, where we will have Digital Adjectives, which is another member of the Peach Umbrella Network. They're going to come and talk about promoting your business on social media. And then Tony Smith will be coming back, and we're going to go have a breakout workshop where we're going to go step by step, because one of her thoughts is that people have a business that's not really a business. So she's going to give us step by step directions on how to get registered with the state, how to get registered with the county, how to get registered with the city. And Peach Umbrella is going to sponsor 20 fees to take care of 20 people to pay their state fees to get them registered with the state of Florida. We also, during Black History Month, we launched and relaunched, actually not launched, relaunched the Blackness Market. We, prior to COVID, Blackness Market was up and running down on Fifth Avenue with at Donnie's Place. So we had our relaunch Black History event on the 20th of this month. We had it up on Atlantic Avenue at Studio 404 at the time. And we had a great turnout. We had 14 vendors show up with a variety of products, very successful. We waived the fees of everybody because they're Peach Umbrella members. And that was one of the perks. If you became a member, we waived the fees. So everything was profit. Everybody had fun. And it is just so nice to just support our Black businesses, to support each other in our businesses and what we do. So we are going to continue the Blackness Market. Every third Sunday of the month, we are going to host the Blackness Market. The location will be announced. We encourage you to please check out our Facebook page and the Instagram page so that we will be posting that information there. We have one of two locations that we have two locations, and we just have to decide which one is going to be the best fit for the growing vendors. As I said, we have 14, and now we have about 20 to 25 people that are already signing up for the month of March, and we're looking for more. So the place will be announced. Is there anything else? We just encourage you, please check out the website so that you can see who the vendors are, and let's just keep our dollars in our community.
Angela, can you give them the website address?
The website address is www.thepeachumbrella.com. That's thepeachumbrella.com. That takes you directly to the site.
Thank you. And if you want to find out about any of the other projects, please go to thesetdelray.org. Again, thesetdelray.org. Angela, if is there anything else that you want to share? And if not, then you can transition off so we can bring some other panelists to the table. Is there anything else?
Only that we were waiving the membership fee for the month of February, and you still have until midnight to join. So go ahead, go on www.thepeachumbrella.com and join the network. Check it out. Look at all of our vendors. As I said, we are now at 97, and there's a variety of everything there. You have until midnight to join.
Thank you so much.
All right.
So I want to talk about a couple of other projects that we did this week. One was Faith Forward. Faith Forward, and the next two projects I'm going to talk about. In fact, I'm gonna do it slightly different. I want to give a shout out to Montre Bennett. Montre Bennett is a parent at Village Academy, and he's also a community organizer. Montre, so in the first section, we were giving shout outs to the our ancestors whose shoulders that we stand on. This shout out is to you because I watch your passion and your heart for the work that you are doing. I've watched your growth, and it's been a joy to see. So the work that you did at Village Academy, and for those who don't know, Village Academy is what we center Reclaim Our Village in. It's our neighborhood school. It came out of the belly of this community. But Montre, what you did by bringing 3 generations, maybe even 4 generations of Delray residents together doing Black history was absolutely phenomenal. The spirit of the old Carver High School was never manifested more than what happened this weekend. For those of you who know the old Carver High School and what it meant on to what we now call the SET community, so you know how special that is. Montre, what you did with Black history at Village Academy just took me back to that same spirit and feel. I think the word now is called vibe. You had kids anywhere from 4 years old and maybe even younger, all the way through seniors in high school that got to hear from the elders, got to display their talent, got to showcase all that's good about our community under the banner of Black history. And I know you, Montre. You didn't ask for a whole lot of help. Even though I know you got help, that's not who you are. You're not going to ask for a lot of help. You're just going to roll up your sleeves and do the work. I've never been so proud of you. I want to ask you to continue that. And I'm watching what you are also doing with Roots Cultural Festival. Bring those two together. Fight the fight. Your son is going to be the benefactor of it. And we want to lift you up always and constantly for the work you do. For those of you who can, get out to Village Academy, find out what they're doing as we reclaim our village. And I think many of you know that there is a project. You can see through the demolition of the buildings that there's something going on out there. And it is the next phase of the coalition's vision to be able to bring a technical college to our neighborhood. We want to also utilize that as a way to and jumpstart the high school. And so keep your eyes out for the work that's going on the campus of Village Academy. And then a big part, as I transition to the final two things I'm going to discuss, a big part of the work that we do here through the coalition is how do we preserve our neighborhood? We talk about gentrification, and gentrification is real. But the real challenge with gentrification is the pressure that our neighbors are under about being displaced. And so our work and our vision is how do we preserve our assets? One of those assets that we talk about preserving is the Black church. the Black church has played a critical role in the heart of the set, not only in the set all over the country, but what the set is doing that may be different from any place else is looking at as a community as how we invest back and help preserve the asset. We don't talk about how gentrification is impacting the Black church. We talk about how it's impacting the Black family, but gentrification is also impacting the Black church. The Black church has plenty of assets, and the thinking and the planning of the coalition is how to take those assets, make sure that it preserves the community and the church itself for years moving forward. And we're in process of making some wonderful things happen. The first 3 churches who have enrolled in the process is St. Matthew's Episcopal Church, one of the oldest churches in our community, Ebenezer Methodist Church, and Community Primitive Baptist Church. In fact, one of the folk who were on Jerome Weatherspoon, his family founded that church, and they're actively engaged. Phase 1 is how do we begin to just take the church and begin to do some real seeding projects. And so we were able to go, and what I mean by seeding projects is to really begin to show the church some love, that the community will invest in our local churches. I don't have to attend there. Now, my wife attends St. Matthew's. All my children attend St. Matthew's, but I don't go there, right? But it doesn't mean that I won't come in a second to help and invest in St. Matthew's. And the community through the coalition did just that this Saturday. We planted an orchard, we planted a garden, we painted a community space. It was hard work. At 65, I don't dig holes as well as I used to. Well, if you feel my hands, I ain't never really had a shovel in my hand too often. But the spirit of doing that work was phenomenal. And so I don't know. I wish Montre was here because he could tell you. We planted a lot of trees. We planted a garden. Ann Stacia Wright, you was there with us. It was a great day. And while I was there, a couple of things. I realized that I wanted to plant a tree, so by myself, because I wanted to know where that tree was, so I could take Braylon there and show him that tree. I know I'm at an age I'm not going to actually be able to realize the shade that tree is going to generate, but my grandson will, and I want to show him the tree that his granddad planted for him at a church that means so much to us. So for the organizers in this case, Cynthia Ridley, Kristen Cox, Sarah, so I can't say your last name right now. This is but I know it starts with an S. And Montre, and all the folk who went into making that happen. Thank you. It was a wonderful event. But the place I want to put the bullet in is that's preserving our assets. And as I transition out of this section to Reggie Cox, who I want to ask you, Reggie, to talk about another one of our preservation projects, the work that we're doing on repair and restore, and why the coalition is leading that work.
Thank you, Chuck. The repair and restore program for the set is vitally important, because the number of properties that are basically in need of repair. We have seniors in our community that on fixed incomes and have marginal means, and the properties really are in need of repair. And this, Chuck, this is really at scale, okay? And so what that does, it does a number of things, okay? So we talk about building wealth. We know how much the land is worth now, okay? And we certainly can talk about that. But to be able to live in more healthier conditions, more safer conditions, As far as electric is concerned, I mean, the coalition, and we'll talk about this some more down the line. Mrs. Phyllis Gunn on Northwest 6th Avenue, sponsored the rewiring of her house, okay, which is going to enable her to obtain cheaper insurance, okay, which is going to directly help our bottom line. And there's been others, Miss George and Lottie Williams, other seniors in our community, and we're going to seek to do more with this restore and repair program. But it's vitally important. We're looking for partners to help us to continue to provide this work. We got a good start, but we do want to. The goal is to grow that program, Chuck, and get a program at scale. I'll be talking about government accountability a little bit in a little bit, and see where they fit in and where they should be fitting in. Right. But we certainly are not going to wait any longer towards helping our seniors and our neighbors with these critical repairs. And mind you, Chuck, I just want to add, I mean, these properties, a number of these properties for years have been identified in the CRA plan, okay, as properties that need to be upgraded, okay? So there's a history of this on the institution side, and our repair and restore program on the coalition side is doing more than talking about it. And also what's vitally important about the program, Chuck, is that the typical red tape barriers that the institution plants into the process, okay, we act in a manner where we look to remove those barriers.
Thank you, Reggie. Before I transition out, Ms. Anastasia Wright, is there anything you want to share about? You was with us all weekend. Is there anything you want to share?
Oh yeah, definitely. I had a great time, and the community showed up and showed out. And as far as everything else, I just want to piggyback on a little bit more what Reggie said. I'm also on that committee, Repair and Restore. We have a list of our seniors and community who desire and need work done to their homes. They don't wish to sell, but they wish, because they want to, like we said, do generational wealth. Not only did we, and now Reggie didn't tell the story, but not only did we rewire Miss Gunn's house, but Miss Gunn was living without a working stove. So the SET Alliance, led by Mr. Cox, did make arrangements, and now she has the stove, and she's fixing her meals, and she's really excited about the electrical work. She's told me that she's grateful for it all, and at some point in time we'll bring her home. But I'm looking forward to, and as Ray said, we need others that are going to come in. We need partners to come in because there's a lot of work to be done. And if we don't want our people to sell, then we've got to do some help in some repair and restore. That's it, Chuck. Oh, by the way, Chuck, I did planning, and I'm 68 years old, and I had lots of fun.
Yeah, we both did it. Oh, and St. Matthews, not only do we want to say thank you for working with us on this project, and there were members from Ebenezer, thank you for coming out, and members from Primitive Baptist, thank you for coming out. And St. Matthews, you all did it once again. That lunch, cob fritters, chicken, fish, peas and rice, crab salad, coleslaw. I better shut up because I'm getting hungry just thinking about that meal. Thank you, though, for your hospitality Also, it was a good day for Faith Ford. It was a good day Sunday
Sunday
on the
and Sunday.
groundbreaking. It was a good day a couple of weeks ago when we did Blackman's Market. It was a good week with Montre at Village Academy Coalition as chair. I've never been prouder than the organization I get to serve in front of. Community, come join us. Help lift us up as we lift the setup. Reggie, that will complete the coalition's report, and we'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Chuck. Often, I guess we say a lot of things in the set, right? But one of our cliches, which always holds true, is nobody is coming to save us. We get reminded of that, Chuck, and Morris every day. Okay, on a national scale, state scale, and most definitely a local scale. The set is Neighborhood Alliance is often explained to friends and stakeholders. We often have to explain to them that we're not a nonprofit organization and we're not an electoral process organization. But what we do and what we should be doing is to build power in our neighborhood. And here's why. If you look at government accountability, as far as what government should be doing, that's a good question. What should they be doing, right? If we are taxpayers and we have needs and asks and wants and priorities, should they be doing that? Should they be helping the underserved? Should it be a more balanced approach as far as disparity? Should we be in a place where you cross one line and it seems like you're in another country? Okay, who's responsible for that? Why is that like that? Okay, and so the goal of the Alliance is to build power in our community, and so we just don't look at a win of an elected official winning an election as a sole win in our neighborhood. It's one indicator and it's one part of measuring for success, but it's not the only part. What we look to do with the Alliance to redefine what that win looks like for our neighborhood. And in particular, when we're looking out for our best interest as far as the Alliance is concerned, as you all know, there are many, many obstacles, historical obstacles that we run into. As a matter of fact, these obstacles are baked into the sauce. They're designed to keep us in substandard conditions. They're designed to keep us under power and control of others. These are inherent obstacles built into the process. And so as we begin to redefine what a win is, we have to collectively look at a broader definition of what a win is for our community, which means we have to set an agenda which is community-led. In other words, we have to take ownership of that accountability or that lack of accountability and those obstacles that the institutions put in place. For example, we've had a CRA since 1985 in Delray Beach. Chuck knows the story of 3 or 4, 5 decades before that. We talk about that all the time and why they had to get here in the first place because of the divestment after the elimination of the Jim Crow laws and the divestment on why the urban areas started disintegrating in the first place that preceded the CRAs by 2-3 decades. And we know now the remnants of that is the rent is too damn high. Rent is too damn high. I mean, Chuck mentioned earlier about 42% increase in rent. So who's accountable to that? gentrification in Delray Beach, development, not displacement. We have plans all the way back. Mr. Zach, like I say, helped create WARC almost 25 years ago. I served on the board with Mr. Zach for 14 years on the WARC board. Who's responsible? Who should be accountable to these disparities that we see in the set today that's equivalent to the statistics as far as wealth is concerned that it was back preceding the creation of the CRA? How many millionaires have been created on the west side versus the east side of Swinton in the last 40 years? Who's responsible for that? So tonight, we're going to have a discussion with the former mayor, one of the former mayors of Riviera Beach, and some members of the American Legion Hall here in Delray to discuss and have a conversation as a prime example of abusive and disrespectful city commission, and how that accountability is oftentimes not in our favor as a result of that. So we're going to go ahead and bring Attorney Michael Brown in. How you doing?
Good evening. Good evening to everyone.
Good evening. Mr. Brown, would you go ahead and in your own words and share with us about the ills of government accountability in our neighborhoods such as the set?
Mike, before you do, did we get Miss Imani, James, and Jimmy in?
I sent them a message.
There's Jimmy. Jimmy, you just coming from church?
Yes.
All right. Is Imani? I'll try to get Imani in for you.
Yeah, Imani isn't here yet, but I'll keep an eye out for her.
Okay, thanks. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Michael.
I see Mr. Dilby is in as well. Thank you, Mr. Cox. And I like, we have conversations frequently, and I guess the conversation I have is, I'm sure, the same conversation and thoughts that all of you have, because we're all here and we're thinking about the same thing. But one thing that you said that I repeat to people is that they're not coming. No one's coming to rescue us. They're not coming. There's no army. There's no troop. They're not coming for us. So whatever we're going to do, we're going to have to do it for ourselves. I was just watching this weekend. I got this new Smithsonian channel on my television, and I love national parks. I love the great parks. In fact, I'm going out there in a few months because I've been talking about it for years. And as I keep getting older, I said, you better go before you be dreaming about it. And they had this series on, and they were talking about the great expanse of this country across the plains. And at one time, they said there was 6 million buffalo roaming in this country. Now there's 5,000 of them in Yellowstone Park. What happened to the buffalo? Now the buffalo was used by the Native Americans for food, but also for clothing, for a whole bunch of things. And the settlers, when they came here, they didn't really like the buffalo meat. In fact, when the trains went out there, they would shoot the buffalo out the window, because what they were doing was, they shot them for the fur and stuff too, but they also knew that the Native Americans depended upon that buffalo for survival. And so when we sit and we talk today, and I say, well, and just like you all, I said, at one point there were millions of Native Americans in this country. Now there's probably about 70,000. And what happened to them? What happened to them? And when you go out west in Montana and all those places and the Grand Canyon, and I love that stuff, and you look around and you say, well, did they pay those people for that land? And we all know the answer to that question. So they're not coming. So we've got to start doing like what you all are doing here. I went to law school at Howard University in Washington, D.C. I was there in the early 80s when D.C. was Chocolate City. D.C. was Chocolate City. The Mayor Barry was there. People said bad things. Mayor Barry was a great mayor. He had some personal shortcomings, but he had a great mayor. He was a great mayor because DC was a chocolate city, and the people who were in control, the attorneys, the contracts, the $1 million contracts, all of that stuff was going to our communities. That was 35 years ago. You go back there right now, guess what? It's not Chocolate City anymore. It's not Chocolate City anymore. And all those professionals and all those people that were there, they passed on just like, as we walked through the line. And so obviously they had a good time. I saw them. They were having a great time. Parties and they were going everywhere. But when DC and when it changed and when the power changed, all of a sudden DC has been building. Even during the economic crisis, DC was still building, and all these big buildings going up. We don't own any of that. My first involvement legally with Delray was in the early 90s when they decided overnight they wanted to do the Delray Beach Tennis Center. And I came in there. Dr. Norris was my good friend, and he knew that I did eminent domain. I was in a big law firm called Jones, Foster, Johnson, and Stubbs. It's still in business right now. In fact, it's the firm that, among other things, represents the town of Palm Beach. It's the oldest law firm in Palm Beach County. And in that firm were some of the top eminent domain lawyers in the country. Guys named Sid Stubbs and Adams Weaver. I learned eminent domain, so I represented 80 people when the CRA first started with that $10 million bond of excellence when they started out. And I discovered then that on 300 feet each side of Atlantic Avenue was the original plan to wipe them all out. Then they said, oh, that's too much. They brought it in, but they decided to do it a little more quietly. And so that was my first involvement with eminent domain. By the time I became the mayor of Riviera Beach, I felt I was perfectly suited because I grew up in Riviera. I grew up here. My family were the Mitchells down there in Delray. We used to come down there, Bump Mitchell, Buddy Mitchell, that's my family. We used to come down there all the time. And so I was perfectly suited when I came to Riviera Beach. I said, listen, change is coming. It's coming because I'd seen it. When I started working down there in Delray, my firm was the firm that helped Boca Raton acquired by eminent domain. The Meisner Park is the Boca Raton CRA. That's where I got my first experience with CRAs. Meisner Park is in the Boca Raton CRA. So by the time I came to Delray, I'd already been involved with Boca Raton. Meisner Park was there. And so when I became the mayor, I said, listen, let's huddle up because here's what we're going to do. We know change is coming, but let us put together the plan so that we win. And for a minute, people went along with that because you all know as well as I, there are always people on this side that tear us down. And we made some progress, and just as we got there, things changed again. So there's some great things up here, but we also, one final thing, one day I practiced law, still practice law. I was coming out of the courthouse, some young lawyers, young ladies. It was like 5 young ladies, all of them lawyers, all younger than I. I used to be a young lawyer, but they're young. And they were standing there in a huddle talking together. And they said, Mayor Brown, what do you think? I said, well, what's the question? There's a new community out west of town called Park Lake, Lake Park, something out there. All right. And the young lady who's the mayor, she happens to be African-American, and they were in the news. And they said, well, we're looking to buy a place. And we're thinking, what do you think about buying out there? If you were trying to buy something right now, where would you go? I said, what? I said, you talking about out there past the Pratt & Whitney place where it's got the worst, highest incident of brain cancer in the country? Is that what you're talking about? Where the ash comes over from the glades and where the cogeneration plant is? If I was going, you all are young ladies, young professionals, all probably went most of the historical Black college. Where would I go? I said, you need to go down to Pleasant City or off of Tamron or down in Riviera Beach and buy because they're not coming. We've got to figure out a way for us to rescue ourselves. And that's why I like the set because that's what you all are doing there. And when you look at the set, it's real simple. Think about it like this. And anytime you hear me talk, anytime I get involved, this is my specialty. You saw recently, you see it in the paper. You remember a few years ago, they said Scripps was coming to town. Scripps was coming to town. The governor gave them millions. The county gave them millions. They were all celebrating. They gave them all this money. Scripps is coming to town. Scripps still ain't got to town yet. Then they said, well, they're sitting there. And recently, they had a program where Scripps brought someone in. But if you go back and look at the hundreds of millions of dollars or tens of millions of dollars that the state and the county gave to put into scripts to incentivize that. So you all have the set. Guess what? The greatest thing that you all are doing is because the set is somewhere where the government is supposed to infuse money into the set the same way it did in the Pineapple Grove, the same way it did on the Bond of Excellence, because when that happens, once the government puts money in for drainage and correcting problems, then developers say, hey, wait a minute, we need to go there. Okay, we need to go there. So when they legislated us into poverty and slavery, it's not asking much for them to legislate us out, particularly where all we're asking or demanding is that they do for us what they done for Pineapple Grove and other places over there. That's what we're doing. So as it relates to the American Legion, and I'll have my clients give you their take on it and their history of what has happened there. What we're doing there, the city decided some time ago, I guess they wanted that property, and I guess they figured that there was no more fight anymore and they could do what they wanted to do. And so these brave people at the American Legion, they called me and they said, hey, do you want to get involved? I said, absolutely. We filed a inverse condemnation action against the city that's similar to eminent domain. Eminent domain is when the city says, hey, we're going to take this property, we pass a resolution, or when the government says we're going to take this property, we're going to pass a resolution, we need it for a public purpose, and this is what we're going to do. That's what we were going to do when I was mayor of Riviera Beach, although we never did it. That's what we were going to do. They said, oh, they rushed and changed the law then, by the way, to make it. But what happens is that's eminent domain. Inverse condemnation is very similar. It's when the government, by its actions, basically take your property, but they didn't go through with the formal process where they passed a resolution, voted on it, and said, this is what we're going to do. They basically took it another way. In this place, they took it, they said, okay, we got a lease, we got to shut it down. They don't have a lease, we're going to shut it down, put up the fence. That's what they've done. So we have filed a lawsuit regarding that. We have a hearing on their first motion to dismiss our lawsuit coming up 2 days from now, and I'm confident that we'll be able to survive that. And what we've asked the court to do is to, one, determine that the city, that first of all, that the American Legion, Post 198, had ownership interest as a result of that original 99-year lease in that property. Now, does it extend beyond 99 years? It started in 1947. So from 47, count 99 years. They have an interest, an ownership interest in that property. And therefore, the city, when they closed it off, they took our property. So the way it works in an inverse condemnation case is the judge, there are two trials. First, I have to convince the judge that they took something that belonged to Post 188. If the judge says, no, they didn't take anything, Post 188, you didn't have anything, then we have to appeal to the Court of Appeals. If the judge says, and by the way, the first trial before the judge is just the judge, not the jury. But if the judge says, yes, they have property rights, and yes, that 99-year lease or formation of it was still in place, and you took that when you put that fence up, now part two is now we get to have a trial before 12 people. So it's a two-step process, and it's an onerous process. It's tough because I can tell you most people don't take inverse condemnation cases because you're fighting City Hall. City Hall throws everything at you, and they can get very, very expensive with depositions and stuff. But it's a part of the fight that I'm involved with these brave people, and I'm willing to do it. And so that's where we are. Our goal is we'll have the judge determine, yes, they had a property right. Yes, the city is taking it. And if the judge determines that, then the judge will decide how much the city owes Post 188. Now, ultimately, we're then working out a solution for that. You know, one of the things, and I've talked to the clients about this, and they'll decide, I said, hey, if the city was smart and if they were wise and if they were honorable, they would say, well, we need to fix it. We need to fix this. And we need to invest in Post 188 and make it the best American Legion post in the country. And as a part of doing that, that'll be the start and the beginning of us investing in the set, because you're right in the middle of the set. What a wonderful start that would be. That's where I hope we're going with this. And ultimately, the American Legion Post 188, as the brave people that they were and serving the military, they are beacon and leading the way and assisting you in this fight. I hope I didn't go too long.
No, absolutely not. I mean, in terms of accountability, we first of all, Attorney Brown, we want to thank you for updating us on where that is. You're right, that is in the heart of the set, and it's a location that we all have come to love and use and hear about over the years, just for multiple events and occasions. I see you have Mr. Dildy and Miss Betts on tonight. If they would like to give some comments, we certainly would like to hear from our neighbors.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I would just like to piggyback on everything Attorney Brown said. One of my greatest concerns is I don't even know how we get to this point. I was hoping that we could work something out with the city, seeing how as many of the members of this particular post are property owners within the set. Some of the veterans that serve our country don't even make it back home. And many of the ones that do come back home are productive members of society. We've contributed a great deal of love and time within the city of Delray Beach. Many of us call Delray Beach home. And I look at how the city of Delray Beach could give millions of dollars worth of land away to developers who don't have any interest in the city, but yet you take a group of veterans who've been here since the 1940s and contributed not only to our country, but to our community in a positive fashion. I was hoping that maybe we could wind up getting the land back as well as the building. You know what I mean? I'm prayerful that everything works out to our advantage. And I guess I'm just happy to have Mr. Brown working with us, and I'm glad to have you guys in our corner as well. So I'm thinking positive. I don't know what else we could do. If you guys have any suggestions, I know I even had a thought run through my mind to whereas maybe we can get a petition or something and just have people just send letters or something to City Hall or whatever. I don't know.
Well, Mr. Dildy, with your leadership as the you've led Merritt Park Neighborhood Association for years with Alliance, and we certainly offer this forum for some exposure on the lack of accountability by the city. And so we're keeping a close eye on this as well. So we certainly can talk, offline to find out what we can do. We do know this. It is an election year. And, in an election year, sometimes the institution gets a little more motivated. We certainly don't use that as the only indicator, of success. But, it seems the timing has a way of making some of these things kind of shift in the way of righteousness. Ms. Betts, do you want to add anything?
Only that I hope the city realizes that the American Legion is a beacon for those who have left this country and fought in other countries and come back home. And so many of them have mental issues, disabilities. And the American Legion post can be the place for them to go and actually talk to someone who understands the things that they have gone through. So with that, I hope that the city realize that they could be a great help to a large number of our young people that are been away from home in a war or away from home serving abroad, that they can put something in place for these people to come back home to. And I'm pretty sure that most of them realize that our veterans, they need a place that they can call their own. I can cite so many things that are wrong with our VA clinics and medical centers, and they need help because they're understaffed. So I have nothing bad to say about them. They need help. They're understaffed. But with our American Legion post, we have people that can offer them information, assistance, to get them into the right place where they need to be, or sometimes it's just giving them uh, a heads up about what they can do to help themselves. So hopefully the city will realize that they have the power to do something great.
Mr. Cox, if I may, Ms. Betts is an extraordinary young lady, and I want her to give you all some information about her background and her military service and where she served and when she served, because as I tell her every time we speak, it's extraordinary to me once I met her. So Ms. Betts, could you just give them some background information on when you served and where you served and the fact that you were the past post commander of this post?
I am a Vietnam veteran, and it's hard for most people to realize that there were regular Army women that are non-nurse that served in country. When I came back, it was difficult for people to believe that a woman had served in Vietnam. I get a lot of people that think that I volunteered to serve in Vietnam. That is not true. It was because I was attached to the special troops that I was sent to Vietnam. So I did not volunteer to go there. That's a misconception. The other thing of it is that when I came back, there was no welcome committee or group or anything in Memphis, Tennessee for those of us who had gone away and come back home. I got that here in Delray Beach after I had been here for a while, gone to school and made it my home. I was the first female commander at Post 188. That was some years ago, over 30 plus years ago. I was also the first Black woman that was district commander. And the district commander is the person who's over all of the veterans in their district. And our district starts with Jupiter, goes out west to Belle Glade, and then back down to Boca Raton. So it has been a joy to serve with Post 188. They were a little hesitant at first to accept me because I was female. But once we got in there, my big brothers taught me the ropes. They made sure that I moved up, and they were just awesome. Awesome. So that's why I do not want Delray Beach to lose Post 188, because it can be a beacon for those who are coming back home.
Wow, that is a tremendous story. You know, coupled with the fact is this is Black History Month, the last day of Black History Month. I never knew that, and I just get more and more amazed about all the powerful stories that come out of our communities that are often lost. I'm like Mr. Dildy now. I don't even know why it's an issue. If I really begin to think about the sacrifice of veterans in this country, and why at a place like the set, this is an issue. Okay, it only points to a sad, dark ideology that I know from our forum. You know what we can do. This will be broadcast. This is broadcast live. It's going to be put on our YouTube page where it can be continually watched and shared, because oftentimes our stories, there's so many of our stories that's buried, Miss Beth. And that's just a wonderful story. I mean, I have chills right now just listening to that. And I live within a rock's throw of the American Legion Hall.
Mr. Cox, you should also know, although you're not maybe old enough to remember the significance of it, but she was there when the Tet Offensive took place. And for those who may not be familiar with that, that was a major turning point in the Vietnam War. It was around Christmas time, and whatever year it was that the Vietnamese, they did a surprise attack, and all of a sudden, the United States and the folks that we were allied with were under attack. Even though eventually the United States beat back the attack, but most people would agree that it had a major impact on the war and the American perception as to what was going on. And when Ms. Betts told me she was actually there during the Tet Offensive, I can only compare it to, in the last few years, we know about Afghanistan and we know about Iraq when they had those big movements and big surges. The Tet Offensive was like that in the mid-'60s. And or whenever it occurred, for Ms. Betts to be in that's an extraordinary situation. And for her to be right here in this hall, and I am sure, and since this is broadcast, and I make this appeal to all of the people in Delray who've had members of Post 188, please contact us and tell us the stories of your relatives, of your fathers and grandfathers or mothers or grandmothers. We want to know not only where they served, but who they are, who they were, and what kind of people were there, because that's what this is about.
Okay, Sean, if you can put what's a good contact email for you all, Attorney Brown?
Well, you could, Ms. Betts, I can give you my email address. And you can reach me at LAW, or Ms. Betts, would you prefer I direct it to you, or would you prefer to come to me?
I would prefer that it comes to you.
All right.
Okay.
You can contact us at LAW, MD Brown at AOL.com. LAW, MD Brown at AOL.com.
Okay, I also see former Commissioner Jimmy Weatherspoon, and also for our viewers, the email address is rolling along the bottom of our screen. Sorry about that. If you could contact and email Attorney Brown for any of the stories, the historic stories of veterans, particularly Post 188 and Delray Beach, they want to hear from you. And we also have former Commissioner Jimmy Weatherspoon on as well, and I would like to give him the floor at this time.
Thank you, Reggie. Just a few comments, if you will, and I'm certainly honored to be able to say that I kind of grew up during the era when the American Legion was at its best. It certainly played an integral part. The memberships of that post played a very integral part of our community advancing to what it is today. Just like Chuck said, the churches have done so has the members of Post 188 has done. That building is historic. Unfortunately, during the time frame when we could not go to the hotels to have our parties and banquets and whatever, it was all hosted right there at Post 188. I can recall when the Boy Scouts was using that building as well. So it's an historic building. And I'm reminded of what when Joshua, when he crossed the Red Sea, and God had him to put these stones there in the edge of the river, and the reason for that was to remind, when someone asked the question, what means these stones, that someone could tell the story that the Israelites crossed the Red Sea during that time frame. This Miracle Legion building, I see it symbolically in the same light, if you will. My children and children after me coming along should be able to tell the story of the significance of the Post 188 building as it stands in our community, and the significance of it. So my appeal to each of you, I'm not a veteran, but I say not on my watch. There were some in the city who wanted to turn that building into a office building. They had plans drawn up, etc. But God has a way of letting people know what they need to know at the right time. So I'm counting on each of you when the time comes to step forward. I learned a long time ago, the only reason evil prevails is when good people say nothing or do nothing. So hopefully, as I said, when the time comes, we will all rally and we'll save that building. And hopefully, as Dilly had said, not only get the property and the building back, but make it one of the grandest posts in this state. Thank you for your time.
Absolutely. Some very powerful words from ex-Commissioner Mr. Jimmy Weatherspoon, also ex-Ward Chair. He's been in the fight a very, very long time. And, you know, very powerful words. You know, evil prevails when good people sit silently by. Not so different. Matter of fact, not much different at all from Dr. MLK's Birmingham jail letter to the pastors for the good of the order, sitting out by. Well, we certainly don't sit idly by in the set with the Alliance. We have enough bandwidth to continuously advocate against complete gentrification in our community. This section has been about government accountability and the challenge and the obstacles that pursue that in our quest towards public trust. Public trust, as we know, in Delray Beach, as far as the commission is concerned, is marginal at best. We know that it is up to the people to hold the elected and ourselves accountable. And to that end, we are organized around that. We use the electoral process as one way to help carry that message. We know it's a long game. Mr. Zach and Ms. Rosetta Rowe, I mean, I can go on and on. Ms. Hart, Nadine Hart, I can, Ms. Wesley, I can, Mr. Randall, I can go on and on, taught us that it's in fact the long game is where we need to be playing. So one election does not determine ultimately how we're going to end up. What's going to determine how we're going to build wealth and protect our neighborhood is our resiliency and our speaking truth to power, just like Mr. Weatherspoon said, and not let these transgressions prevail in our neighborhood. Sean, do you have the video that I sent you?
I do. You want me to play it?
Yes, can you play that, please?
Yep.
As you can see, I show that because when we ask the question, what should the electeds be accountable for? That plan was a community-led plan. It was sanctioned by the institution as far as paying for it. Stakeholders from all over the city, as you can see. When you talk about All America Delray Beach, well, at least that plan had the spirit of that, as you can see by evidence of those support letters from all those stakeholder organizations and the community-led input over a year's time with workshops and input from the community to develop that equity plan. And so when we talk in terms of accountability, of what the elected should be doing, you have a community that has been historically underserved, and doing something about it in the spirit of co-governance with the institution to develop a plan in the first place, and the power dynamics change and they kick it to the curb. Well, we certainly did kick it to the curb. As you've heard Mr. Chuck Ridley, the chair of the coalition, talk about all the great work that we're doing towards housing, education, businesses. Just broke ground on Mr. Zach's granddaughter's home yesterday, Jessica Strong. We have planning other homes on deck to be broken ground over the next few months. And so who ultimately does the accountability lie to? We have to ask our questions. The current commission, they rejected the original SET transformation plan that was supported by a stakeholder organization, that was supported by the people. And it is an equity plan. It's a plan that talks about preserving our heritage. You heard a lot of our heritage tonight with the Weatherspoons, the Strongs, Miss Bet's story, the history of the American Legion Hall, the presidents and block captains and their families, the Ridley family and their contributions to Delray Beach. Is a community of families, of working class families that provided the muscle that built downtown. And you have culturally incompetent, institutionalized electeds who dare mock us and taint our history with petty politics, because they don't understand. They never was taught the history, don't care about the history. Some of them been up there 8-9 years, and through a disparity study out the window, when we almost was at the finish line after 8 years, through a disparity study out the window. Ward started the whole disparity study conversation 10 years ago. These electors threw it out the window, and we filed an ethical complaint. So when you talk about, we filed an ethical complaint against them sabotaging a disparity study where you had a vendor, you had a consultant, staff did everything they were supposed to do. They brought it forward, and time again, we see the corruptness of an institution led by the current commission that derails community-led efforts, transcended through their staff. Number one recommendations, time and time again, get put back to the back burner because of powerful interests and other interests. Oftentimes, interests against the benefits of residents, the underserved residents, historical residents of the set. We now know this. We all know how they eliminated the independent CRA board when, Attorney Brown mentioned about the drainage and the infrastructure, because that's usually the first thing that goes in, when the area is getting ready to gentrify and boom, right? You got to have the guts. Well, the independent board, as you all know if you look at the project numbers, and Stacey, right? You know this. You've been out there a long time. Morris, you know this. If you look at the project numbers on the projects that happened since they stole the independent CRA board of the people, all those project numbers date back to 2016, 2017, when that stuff was budgeted. In other words, it was coming anyway. So, Ann, let me give you a picture, if I may. Just say you baking a cake, and you get all your ingredients. You put your ingredients in your cake, get it how you want it. I just said lemon cake. I like lemon cake. And you get ready to put that cake in the oven, and I come and snatch that cake. You done all the work, and I come and snatch that cake, and put it in the oven and say, I did it. That's what they did. That's what they did, right? And not only that, and when they put the cake in the oven, they put it on slow bake because they didn't get one house built over there in Carver Square. We was ready to go, had designs 4 years ago. So they not only stole your cake, they stole your lemon cake, put it in the oven, and turned your damn oven off. They might need some electrical work over there. We'll see. Okay. But my point is that these obstacles that we run into, and we know elections have consequences, but we certainly have been taught and have the heritage in the set, and when we have partner communities and partner organizations, that we know this is the long game, and that's what we're after. We brought back the Delray Beach Voters League, and those folk in Delray know the heritage and the pedigree of that Voters League. Okay, we know we need that engine, and we're working diligently towards bringing that back. So we want to focus on, and we have to remember not to get distracted, because the current system is designed for deceit, distraction, manipulation. Okay, you have right now current elected officials and appointed officials talking about it seems like every week they get a new entrepreneurial quest. Instead of serving the people, they want to serve themselves, self-serving. They boss this, they boss that. I mean, it's an epidemic in Delray. Okay, 1 week they're contractors, next week they're doing how, the next week they on the stop with some crypto glue or whatever. Changing times, whatever. And it's self-serving and not serving the people. So how we serve the people is stay in the course, okay? Continue to build in our coalition, our machine, providing those basically capacity building and providing the community engagement that is direly needed in our neighborhood. And how we do that is continuously educating our community, being good stewards. The education, let me just say this, and I know Chuck will appreciate this. We have Village Center. You know, we're building homes with the coalition, not one city dollar. There's a new building going over at the Village Center by way of the hard work of the coalition, the Set Neighborhood Alliance, and here again, decades of staying on task within this neighborhood to have. We have to, education is the floor. That's the floor. We're going to have to find a way to uplift, and I'm asking just as we need support with our businesses, but our education, we got Village, we got Atlantic. We want to be able to start bringing that together and really looking at the long game for our kids. The flyer that we put out said the right to remain and live in Delray Beach. The right. What does that mean? How many of our children, how many of us knows the power of the 14th Amendment and the right to be a citizen and the right to be protected? I think that a Village Center, Village Academy, the whole property over there, the 40 acres, we need to, and I'm challenging Morris on this too, we need to certainly keep an eye on that, and that is going to be the key, because we're talking about development without displacement, Morris, and we talk about fighting complete gentrification. Well, that education institution is going to be the key for us building wealth. Not only building wealth, Morris, we have to be able to sustain it. We have to be able to sustain it. And certainly Village Academy Community School, from the cradle, like they say, from the cradle to the grave, one of the kind, I think, Chuck, if I'm not mistaken, in the state. There's certainly a diamond in the rough that we're going to have to continuously try to uplift. So as we move into this election cycle, and I'll let you close out, Morris. I just want to mention, as we move into this election cycle, 2023 March, there's 2 seats that's up. And we already discussed that. That is one way. It's an important way, but it's not the only way. We certainly want to be looking at candidates and electeds that champion equitable development. We don't want to look at a personality. We've learned the ills of that. We want to look at a strong platform and repeat the turnout and repeat the messaging and the message we sent in 2021 in the set precincts. We had the largest margins in the city of Delray Beach, okay, against a platform that did not have our best interest. Morris?
Thank you, Reggie. I'm not going to take much time. As I'm listening I was listening to Mr. Jimmy Weatherspoon, former Commissioner Weatherspoon, speak. And I'm listening to actually both Weatherspoon speak. It kind of hit me that, and also I was listening to Deidre. The same thing that Mr. Zachman was fighting for back then, we're fighting for the same things today. And that's not just in our community. This is throughout the country, in the Black communities that have as much progress we've made, we're still fighting for the same things. And one of the things that's caught my attention that Deidre was saying that during that day when he was there with his grandfather, that how upset the commissioners got when we as a Black community don't do what they say do. So I'm gonna plead to the Black community that's here in Delray Beach and just wherever you are, if you're seeing this, that it's time for the Black community to come and stick together. It is so disheartening to see how many Black folks that look like me, same skin tone, that live in this community, work against the work that we're doing. And so when I first came into and got engaged in the community, that so many people from this community said, do not get tied up with Reggie and Chuck or whatever. They're out to try to get money for themselves. I've been working with these guys now for 6-7 years right now. And to this day, we've gotten to this point. And not one time what I have seen them do is go into their pocket when someone lights are off, or when someone needs some food, or someone needs anything, and provide for the people, the citizen here in the community. What I've seen from the elected officials is that every time that we come forth to try to move this community forward, they put roadblocks in our way. Now, who's really advocating for this community? I'm telling you now, do not put any hope or any faith in our elected officials. It's kind of ironic and crazy that the city commission will vote to give a developer land to develop for $10 that's worth up to $15 and $18 million. But we have a historic site in American Legion Hall right there on Northwest 8th Avenue that they want to take over and turn into an office building or whatever they want to do and not preserve. Where's the Historic Preservation Board on this particular building? Where's our elected official to say they listen to the community? Where are they today? This is what I know, is that we're going to continue to work forward with the help of the city commission or without them. They're getting tax dollars based on the condition of our community, and they're not adequately using those to support our community and to address the needs of this community. We're going to continue to work. We're going to continue to do what we're doing with them or without them. And we're going to be successful. We have been successful. and we'll continue to be successful. Yesterday, Jessica will have a home. As I was standing there and I was looking at the CLT homes across the street versus the home that was behind me, that will be behind me as I was speaking. Core Isles look good and does a lot for the community visually. But what does it do for the people that own, that lives in that home? The only thing they can do is pass a lease down to their family member. Not ownership. They can't build wealth through that. But the home that's right across the street from that where Jess will be living, she would be able to pass it down from generation after generation after generation after generation. This is the kind of work that we're doing in the community. So if anyone tell you otherwise, tell them to, well, you know, we're here advocating and fighting against the institution to make sure we provide something, at least something back for our kids and our grandkids and their kids. So this is why we're doing the work that we do. This is why we stay up the hours that we do, and this is why we have these meetings. We want you to be educated and be informed for yourself, and the best way to do that is to come to these different type of meetings and get involved. So that's all I have. I know it's almost 8:30, so I'll turn it back over to Ann or Chuck, whichever one is available.
Would you turn, Michael? Do you have something you would like to share? Then you, Ann?
Yeah, I just want to tell you all, I know you all have been working at this for a while. Obviously, this is the first meeting that I've attended with you all. So I want to tell you this, and sometimes it takes a person like myself to remind you all of the work and what you all have been done and the importance and the significance of what you've done. When I first met Mr. Cox and he started talking about the set, I wasn't really sure what he was talking about at first. And then I realized what you all had done and what he had done and what you've been working on. And the fact is that you all have the talent and the ability to recognize that by designating this area and identifying who's there and who the people are that'll benefit, and how you mentioned the 14th Amendment, Mr. Cox, we're all citizens. We're all citizens. We're all citizens. And so when the city of Delray put millions of dollars into Pineapple Grove, when it put millions of dollars along West Atlantic, when it put millions of dollars into the tennis center, okay, then we need to understand, you all understand, but the people in the community who may watch this and who don't fully understand, need to understand all you're doing is advocating for, you're a citizen. We deserve the same thing. Now, you saw recently where I think it's a great project in the city of West Palm Beach. West Palm Beach is on the rise. Mayor James is doing some great things there in that administration. If you look at that city, it's booming. And if you saw, the University of Florida is coming there. And I saw what Mayor James also mentioned, Florida A&M. But if you watch, when they talk about the University of Florida, the city of West Palm Beach is going to invest millions of a valuable piece of property. They're going to put in infrastructure. They're going to incentivize the University of Florida to make it happen. That's not unusual. That's what they did when they built the tennis center. The Palm Beach County and the state and the former governor, Bush, paid millions for the company to move from California to Jupiter. They were supposed to create millions. Let me give you something more simple. You baseball fans. A few years ago, the city of West Palm Beach County, and the state of Florida overnight came up with about $220 million to build those 2 spring training facilities out there for 2 baseball teams that are both worth in excess of $3 or $4 billion. Now, here's what you all have done and what the residents of Delray Beach need to understand, those who don't work against it. And by the way, as mayor, as a former mayor, I know exactly what you're talking about when people take shots at you. But unfortunately, that's the way it is. You keep on keeping on. Because what you've done is you have this ability here, and you're saying you want for your community, for our community, what other communities have got, and legally we're supposed to get it. Because then what happens is they came together in 5 years and put together $225 million to build those spring stadiums out there. And remember, 25 years ago, they built the one up there in Jupiter too. They built that one too. The county did that one. So you said, well, wait a second. Now, if the county and the state and the city came together and put millions into a project so that two teams that are worth each in excess of $2 billion apiece, so that people come down here, they're on strike right now, can play baseball in the springtime, that was a good investment. To invest in the infrastructure and the roads and the width and the and wiring for the set to make that area attractive, because what you will do is you will be putting into the set what they've put in other places. And once you put it into the set, that makes it attractive for development. And then development will say, well, wait a minute, you mean I can go and put another small hotel right along Fifth Avenue, just like the one that's out there on Atlantic? And I can come in, and by the way, the hotel that was on Fifth Avenue or any of those other avenues, by the way, it ought to be owned by somebody who looked like the people in the set, and shops and restaurants. So what you've done, and for those people in our community, and I know who they are because I had a bunch of them in Riviera Beach, and we almost made it, but we had them. But you know what? For those people who really listen and understand the significance of what you all have done, because you're right there. You're right there. One of my heroes, he passed away, Maynard Jackson. 2 weeks before he passed away, I had a conversation with him, and he was lamenting about how the struggle, he went through the same thing. He went through the same thing. He said the worst thing that was facing our communities were people who were from our community, of our community, were scared to do something, even though they were put in a position to do something for our community. They're scared to do something because they're scared about how somebody else might look at them and say, "Whoa, look at what they did." In reality, though, most of the people in this country, I believe, who are not from our community, say, well, it makes sense that you got people fighting for your community. They're just waiting on our community to step forward and say, okay, use the same tools that everywhere else is using, use them to go forward. And that's what you all are doing. The work that you've done is so important. I hope the people in Delray, particularly those in our community, understand and look at what you're doing, because you're right there. Even though you had a setback, the fact that Delray stepped back from what they basically did is they said, wait a minute, they're getting ready to succeed there. We need to step back. And who they're talking about were people in that area. So you ask yourself, well, wait a second, is this really happening? Well, yes, that's what they did. That's what they did. So for any of your residents that are watching who are wondering, what is it that they're talking about? What is it that they're doing? I tell those residents, they are doing great things for Delray. And if you want to watch how in the city of West Palm Beach, and I'm cheering for them, that pretty soon you're going to have a University of Florida campus there. Watch how, go back and look at how much money the city of Delray, the CRA, put into building that tennis center, and look at how much money they put into Pineapple Grove, and look at how they put in these other places, and all these communities have uplifted. And so you of course, they're supposed to put it in your community too, and give us an opportunity to benefit and make money from there. Because when you go all across this country, and by the way, we're all in this together, because to be honest with you, there's not a place in America where it has been done the right way. Because remember, the Civil War ended in 1865. The Voting Rights Act was passed in 1965. So if the slaves were free, ask yourself, why did they have to pass a new law? So that means we've only been free since 1965. I was born in 1960. I've been practicing law for 35 years, which is amazing to me. So what you're talking about is, as we all sit here and remember the world that we've been growing up in, no matter what our professions are and our experiences are, we've only been free for about since 1965, 66. And remember, we got a little freedom in the early 70s. A guy named Ronald Reagan came in and said, oh, push him back down. And so, but with that, you still have fought and you survived in your profession and what we're doing, and you're on the right track. And so I hope the residents of Delray understand that, because I plan to spend the rest of my time on this planet fighting with people like you and Delray and other places, doing what we can. And it's time for us to step up and understand, Reggie, like you said earlier, nobody's coming to help us. You know, I don't blame, when you're in the middle of I played football in college, it's about getting first downs and touchdowns. And when you're in a battle, I can't expect the other guy to help me. All right. Now, as long as my point is, okay, I can handle myself as long as you don't keep changing the rules on me, because I can handle myself. So nobody's coming to rescue you in West Atlantic and Riviera Beach. They're in Newark or DC or anywhere else. And it's on us, like people like you all that are putting your skills and your effort and your skills and your tenacity together to keep fighting. And so you keep pushing. And I want your residents to understand and appreciate what you all are doing down there. Yeah, they say they're always fighting about something. They said that when I was the mayor. You're always arguing. I was arguing for you. I'm fighting for you. And you know what? You keep doing it anyway, because think about it. There's always people on the other side that work against you. After all, you can't keep a certain group of people in slavery for 400 years without somebody working to help keep you in slavery. So you keep pushing anyway.
Thank you. And you're on mute.
In closing, I just want to say to the community, we're all in this together. We're here, and we are looking to make our community a bigger and better place to live and to have family, and build generational wealth for our children and for our within our community. It's very important that you tune into these meetings, because it's education. It's giving you the education, trying to give you an understanding of the work that we're doing and why we are doing it. And it's just not for us and for our family. It's for all, because it takes a village, and we are the village, and we are all members and a part of the village. That's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Cox.
Okay, well, with that said, I want to thank everybody for their input tonight. Special thanks to Sean Hall at Viral Vision Marketing for giving us great technical support and broadcasting support. We appreciate it as always. The next public-facing Set Neighborhood Alliance meeting, it will be on April 18th. That's a public-facing meeting for updates like this one. The internal meeting will be on the third Monday of next month for the presidents and block captains. With that said, I'd like to thank our special guest, Attorney Brown, for his insight, and Chair of the Coalition, Chuck Ridley, and also President Ann Stacey Wright, and Co-Chair Morris Karstoffen. And as always, remember, we must stay the course. Good night, Delray Beach.
Good night, Mr. Cox.